So just a few practical information, quelques informations pratiques avant de commencer.
Just some technical info before starting. If you need the simultaneous translation, there is a specific recommendation on the flyer you have received at the entrance in order to understand how to have access to the simultaneous translation into English and French. Actually, these speakers in here on stage are going to talk mainly in English, whereas the situation will be slightly different during the different workshops of the day. If you have some questions, you can address yourselves to
red ribbons,
the people working in here for us with.
So if you have any questions regarding where to go, where to find your workshop, or anything else, you can approach our volunteers, our magnificent volunteers who are here, and they are marked with a red ribbon. I would like to remind us all that we are having today a hybrid conference. We're about 80 people here. We are going to be about 80 people here. Not everybody is here yet. And we expect 60 participants online from more than 20 countries. So a lot of the things that we are doing, we want to ensure that we have a real interaction, that we can really discuss together and learn from each other. And later on, you are going to be able to see participants online. We can see 2 of our panelists already, but later on, you should also be able to have a look at our participants online, and vice versa, our participants online will from time to time see you in the audience. So we are doing a lot of efforts to facilitate this joint discussion, this joint worldwide discussion. We are ready to start, and I would like to invite Jean-Marie Byll-Cataria, the president of RECI.
Good morning, everybody. As president of RECI, I'm very happy to open the RECI Thematic Day on reframing education for a sustainable world. First of all, we are very happy to see so many people here in Bern and online. As Beatrice just said, we are 140 participants from more than 20 countries, from Africa, Asia, Europe, and Latin America. Almost 80 participants here in Bern, and more than 60 participants online. Participants from Haiti, where it is still in the middle of the night. Thank you all for being here. I would like also to welcome the organizers of the Thematic Day, RECI Working Group on Teacher Training for Quality Education, with all organizations that you can see on the slide, together with the RECI back office. Of course, I know that you all know why it is important to talk about SDG 4.7. Usually, we always refer to SDG 4 saying, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all. But what does it really mean? I mean, these past days and these past weeks, whenever you open your radio or your television, everywhere in the world, in France, in Egypt, in Africa, in Switzerland, you saw a lot of people, especially young people, demonstrating, expressing their concerns about issues of human rights, issues of violence, issue of global citizenship, or issue of gender, and issue of inclusion, etc., etc. So our big challenge is, what does it really mean in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills to help people to develop? So if we want really to ensure this inclusive and equitable quality education, it means that we must make sure that all learners acquire knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development. And if we want to reframe education for a sustainable world, it means that we must provide opportunities to all learners to acquire these knowledge and skills in relationship with peace, non-violence, global citizenship, gender equality, human rights, but also to change their lifestyles and take into account the diversity of cultures. So this is a real big challenge. So I don't want to go further, I want to give time to discussion and debate. So the only thing I could say is that I wish us all an interesting exchange and a knowledge sharing during this whole day. Thank you very much.
Beatrice, how badly we have degraded our planet.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
all the forest burning, all the plastic in the ocean, the forest burning all around the world, the fauna, flora in extinction.
I mean, we can clean up, and then that's not even all. Think about all the conflicts, often based on identity and wars and gender inequality and growing social inequality. We can clean up here, but we should do that. But, I mean, what else? What else should we do?
So maybe the question is, what is the role for education? What is the role for education? And it seems that we have a universal but specific goal for that, SDG 4.7. SDG 4.7 that you will read on the screen now. Yeah. But I will read it.
I've heard of SDG 4.7.
By 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of culture of peace and nonviolence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development.
Wow. Those are a lot of things. Those are a lot of topics.
Yeah.
Do you think, is that possible without, reflecting deeply about our approach to education, about maybe reframing education even?
Yeah. Good question. And I think, Beatrice, for that, a thematic day on this issue is very welcome.
Let's do a thematic day.
Great.
On reframing education for a sustainable world.
Good.
So, welcome from my side. I'm Beatrice Schulter. I'm the director of RECI. And SDG 4.7 has been selected by the RECI Working Group on Teacher Training for Quality Education. Thibaut Lauwerier is the convener of this working group, and they have selected this topic for today's thematic day. 4.7, we realized, is at the center of RECI's work. RECI is a network of Swiss-based organizations, NGOs, academic institutions, foundations, and also individual experts, and we all work together for mutual learning and for joint advocacy in order to make our contribution to access to quality education for all worldwide. And SDG 4.7 has everything to do with quality education. But even more so, SDG 4.7 is a means to sustainable development as a whole. We have been conducting mutual learning events that are related to SDG 4.7 in RECI. For example, our online RECI open space that happen 4 times a year. Those are webinars, and we've had proposed topics by our members on democratic citizenship, gender-sensitive teaching, play-based learning, psychosocial support in education. All have a relation to SDG 4.7 as well. The broad and various subtopics that Thibaut just read to us, mentioned in SDG 4.7, have been a central part of the work of our members long before the SDGs even existed. We have members working on peace education and the promotion of culture of peace and non-violence, gender-specific issues, intercultural education and the appreciation of cultural diversity, children's rights and human rights education and approaches, environmental education, and they use approaches like cultural education or play-based learning that foster the appreciation of the role of culture for achieving the SDGs. We are now interested to know a little bit more about all of you here and in the 20 countries around the world participating today, and to see what you all are working on. And I hand over to Thibaut.
Thank you, Beatrice. So we are now going to start thinking about this topic by asking 2 questions to all the participants here and online. And I'll ask to put the slides. So for this, you will have to connect to the slides. So take your mobile phone for those in Bern, and for those online, you will have the link in the chat. So you have here the QR code and the link. So I'll let you a few moments to connect to the slides, and then we will have the 2 questions. The Wi-Fi code. Is that okay for everybody? Wi-Fi code, yeah? So for those in Bern, please raise your hand when you are ready, please. Because I know those online, it will be easier. You just have to click on the link. Yes, just a few seconds. Thank you. Are you ready? Yeah? Okay. Please, Nadine, can we have the next slide, please? Yes. Oh, ready. Or you already voted before I asked the question? Wonderful. So the question is, in your work, what are the SDG 4.7 subtopics that you tackle explicitly? So as you can see, you have all the subtopic of SDG 4.7, education for sustainable development, education for sustainable lifestyle, human rights, gender equality, promotion of culture of peace, promotion of non-violence, global citizenship, cultural diversity, and culture's contribution to sustainable development. Please, what is your SDG 4.7 in your work? Thank you very much.
So it is still moving here.
It's moving, so waiting a bit. For the moment, we can see that the champion is gender equality, but we're waiting. And you can vote also for different subtopics, not only one. Okay. Okay, I think we're okay. So we can see that in your work, gender equality, education for sustainable development, human rights are well represented. Also, promotion of culture of peace. That's great. So it's a very interesting information for the rest of the day to know where are your areas. So the second question, more complex. Are there other subtopics not specifically mentioned in the SDG 4.7 text that you think are important for SDG 4.7? So you need to write if you think that there are other subtopics not mentioned in SDG 4.7, but important for you. We have seen there are sustainable development, culture of peace, global citizenship, and so on, but maybe there are subtopics not mentioned. And it's coming. Wait a bit. Thank you very much. So start reading. So we have green skills, discrimination, inequality, psycho-emotional learning. Discrimination, I think I've said. Intersectionality, culture of democracy, indigenous knowledge, and many more. Social justice, horizontality, I didn't know this one. Okay. Colonial reparations, soft skills, global south, protection. Okay, great. So we can see, Beatrice, that there are many subtopics not necessarily mentioned in SDG 4.7. Okay, thank you very much. You can continue writing if you want. It will be saved afterwards. Thank you very much, Beatrice.
Yeah, I think this is a great basis also for us to retain your inputs. This is giving us also and the working group new ideas on also how to think about 4.7. And we hope, of course, to get more of those inputs and exchange. A few words about the program today. You have all received the program on your flyer and also beforehand electronically. We are going to start with a panel discussion to kick off the day and to kind of set the stage for the discussions afterwards in 6 workshops. We have 4 thematic workshops and 2 open spaces. You can see there, those are the open spaces, workshop 3 and 6. Nothing is written there, and I will explain to you afterwards how we hopefully are going to fill it with topics and people interested to discuss. Now let me hand over to Thibaut to explain how we want to kind of bring together all these ideas, inputs, in order to have a conclusion at the end of the day. So we have a proposal on how to collect kind of the essence of our discussions today and bring them together.
Thank you, Beatrice. So first of all, the Thematic Day has been designed to allow lively exchange and mutual learning. So please do not hesitate to share your experience on the topic of today. You will have contributions, but we really want that you share your experience. It will be really important for this Thematic Day. And we have also set the goal to jointly elaborate an SDG 4.7 manifesto today. In each workshop, you will come with concrete recommendations, and we will collect them at the end of the day to form a draft manifesto on SDG 4.7. But you will have further information about this recommendation and also this manifesto at the end during the workshop. In parallel to this, we will ask you today to write your pledge for SDG 4.7. Online participants can write their pledges in the chat, and we will collect them at the end of the day. For the face-to-face participants, you will write your pledge in big letters on paper, and there will be volunteers with cameras taking pictures of you with your pledge at the end of each workshop. So we will also explain you how to do that during the workshop. And finally, during the breaks, a volunteer will be taking short interviews with participants here in Bern to document their impressions on the Thematic Day. For online participants, there is a possibility to conduct interviews after the Thematic Day. Please, Beatrice.
Great. Okay, so we're almost ready to start the panel discussion. But before that, I would like to explain how we want to involve and make sure that you can ask your questions to the panelists. So we have prepared, and we need a slide, a QR code which you can scan again, and during the whole discussion, panel discussion, you can write your question on that application. And you can also vote on questions that others have already written. So maybe before you write your question, you check, does anyone have kind of the same question or similar question that I wanted to ask? So you can just maybe vote and say, we want this one, because towards the end of the panel discussion, we want to pick, let's say, about 2 questions, and we, of course, want to take those that are relevant and important for most of you. So, are we ready? No, we don't have the slide yet. We would need the slide with the QR code for the questions. Right. Okay, now I would like to invite our panelists, and actually, due to the international nature of our event and due to COVID, we have one panelist who is here with us in Bern. I'm very happy to see you, Tina Hascher. She's professor at the University of Bern, and she will join us here in the forum. Please have a seat.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Good morning.
Tina is doing research on teacher training, so we are very much looking forward to hear her perspective on SDG 4.7. Online, we have Karen Roberts. She's education policy advisor at the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. And I'm very happy to see you, Karen, online. It means that you're probably doing a little bit better, and thank you so much for joining us, even though you have been hit by COVID.
Thank
also
you very
online,
much.
we have Roman Tesfaye Adamu. She is project coordinator at the Emmanuel Development Association in Ethiopia. Wonderful to have you here, Roman. We're looking forward to talking to you. And we are still waiting. We are just seeing Yao Ido. Very nice to see you. Yao is joining us from Tashkent, where there is an international conference. He is the director of UNESCO International Bureau of Education, usually in Geneva, but today in Tashkent. So great that you can join us for this panel discussion. Welcome. Moderation of the panel is done by Thibaut, and I am the assistant in order to help a little bit with the timing and the technical issues.
Great. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So we will start the panel, and we will start the panel with the first general but crucial question. And this question is why SDG 4.7 is important for education and more generally for development. And we want to hear from our four panelists on this question. Maybe we will start with Karen, because before the thematic day, we asked Karen what SDG 4.7 means to her. And for Karen, SDG 4.7 is called for achieving all SDGs, including SDG 4. Karen, could you please elaborate on this?
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me, and apologies in advance for my voice. Target 4.7, I consider it unique among the other targets of SDG 4 because it deals with contents and with values that we want to convey to learners through education. So if it is fully implemented, 4.7 should lay the foundation for every learner and for societies to achieve all 13 SDGs. And this aspect of values-based education is quite specific to 4.7 compared to the other targets under SDG 4. And it also makes it very complex, because we can all agree that learning outcomes lead to literacy or should lead to literacy and numeracy. But the question is, do we all agree on what sustainable development is and, and how education should serve this purpose? 4.7, it touches upon a vision of development. It touches upon values and power relations, and these differ in different societies. But finding a common ground in this broad spectrum is a challenge and also a chance. Societies have very different visions and priorities. And on the other hand, we all agree that the SDG are crucial to our planet's survival and our society's survival. So in the end, 4.7 is related to the very purpose of education. Education can't be reduced to instrumental skills. It must serve societal interest and purpose. Even more so in the era of globalization. And if you let me say two last sentences, this is, the SDGs are a major compass for SDC, the organization I work for, and we consider education for sustainable development a means of enhancing sustainable development and central to our work. And this is reflected in our strategic orientations. So I think this stands for everybody who is representing their organizations here in the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much
from my side.
Thank you very much, Karen. Please, Yao, why SDG 4.7 is important for education, for development?
So, as I said, I will speak in French in order to create a linguistic balance. So thank you very much for inviting me. I don't know if you can hear me well because I am connecting from my cell phone and it's not always a good connection. So I think that the ODD, the SDG 4.7 is crucial. And you know, in New York, during the last summit of the Education Summit in September, the recommendations, one of the recommendations, the main recommendations that emerged is that, and this is what was said earlier, that the states need to implement more and more action to make sure that education is not only based on skills, but also on the way we behave. And the objectives of the SDG 4.7 can ensure it. And another important thing is that the SDG 4.7 allow a change in the mentality of people, in the way people behave when we suffer, for instance, of the impact of the climate change, which is due to the bad behavior of human beings. So we need to change our way of thinking, and this is this SDG 4.7 that can allow a change in the way people think in order to live better with our planet. And it's also important for me because this target also makes sure to that we have more inclusion, because we cannot leave anyone behind. And this is what is captured by this target, because not leaving anyone behind is something crucial, is an important factor that crosses all the SDGs. And the SDG 4.7 is the one that crystallized the most this target, this objective. And then the training of education and the Ministry of Education has highlighted the fact that we need to work on the know-how, the way we behave, and being able to live all together. So during the introduction, so Mr. Kataria was talking about what happens in the world today, so violence, discriminations, and xenophobia, and so on. And the SDG 4.7 is the one that can take into account all these concerns in order to live better all together. And another point I wanted to highlight is that the SDG 4.7 highlight the diversity of the context and the need to take into consideration in our answers to education all the context of each areas in order to make sure that what we are doing is relevant. And then another point is that earlier you put on the screen several questions, and we had to answer immediately by clicking on, by tapping. And you said also at the beginning that maybe many people are connected from all over the world. And I know that maybe one of my cousin is connected from Côte d'Ivoire as well, and who is following this meeting, but he was not able to connect to answer immediately to your question. So this is where we can see and not the difference in contexts and the matter of inclusion that needs to be taken into account. And then finally, in New York, there was a significant word that emerged from the General Secretary, who said that we have to decolonize education. And I think that the SDG 4.7 is crucial in this direction through the traditional know-how and the traditional knowledge in order to promote as well multilingual education. because we need to make sure that any child can start school from his home language, from the home language that they're speaking at home. And for instance, in Africa, 1 child out of 10 start school from and start to learn from a different language than the language of the language they speak at home. So we need to make sure we take into account diversity, and we make sure to capture all this in the curriculum. And this is what we are dealing with, and what we are working on with the countries. We want to make sure that all the points I have just highlighted are taken into consideration in the program of the different states and countries to transform education. Thank you.
Thank you, Yao. Thank you. Merci pour ce militantisme linguistique. So we'll have the same question now for Roman. Why is SDG 4.7 important and for education and also for development? Please, Roman, maybe more quickly.
Okay, so regarding to the SDG 4.7, for me as a blueprint for a better and more sustainable future for all, and it's this SDG 4.7 has it's all the holistic regarding to the all SDG targets is 1 to 10. So it's a map. And regarding to the social cycle support, like support playing, based learning, everything it's on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And please, Tina, could you share your...
Thank you very much. I'd like to connect my little speech to the other... Oh, yes, of course, I have to. Yeah, it works. Thank you. I'd like to connect my thoughts to the thoughts that were shared by the others. For me, there are some keywords during the talk so far, like the changement de mentalité. It needs to be implemented, the broad and key function of education. So, as related to teacher education, I think, or school in general, or education in general, I think that we are on a pivotal point of implementing the values that we are striving for. If you just keep in mind that about in general education, let's say, or in school, there are about 15,000 hours that students attend school around the world. So I think this is quite a good point to set in with ideas of sustainable development. It's compulsory education plays a key role, and of course teachers play a key role. And what we could implement in teacher education will be mirrored in school and in general education. So that's why I think that educating teachers for the future, for a sustainable future, is one of the best things you could do. But on the other hand, we see that this approach and the expectations to teachers and teacher education are not just from our perspective, from sustainable development, but everybody thinks that teacher and teacher education and schools are pivotal for educating the future. So what I want to add to the existing thoughts is that we have to keep in mind not to overburden school and teacher education with our ideas. And as Karen mentioned, she said, if it's implemented, so we have to be very carefully in doing this implementation process, because it has to empower teachers and future teachers and teacher education, and not giving additional stress, additional demands, and additional pressure to school and to teacher education.
Thank you very much, Tina. So we will come back to this point later, because we'll address the limits of SDG 4.7. I have different questions, issues I would like to address, so please, we'll try to make relatively quick answers to this answer in order to hear from the four panelists, but also the question from the participants. So the next question is that I would like you to share some good practices to support teachers and learners in working towards SDG 4.7. And Yao, at the International Bureau of Education, you are developing specific curricula to address environmental issues. Green curricula, you told us about blue curricula. Could you tell us more about it, please?
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Yes, you know about the summit organized by the UNESCO 6 months ago, and on the climate change. And it was regarding the education to the sustainable development. And there was a declaration that was implemented, and that showed that about more than 60% of countries do not have in their curricula some modules to face in an efficient way and relevant way climate change. And so there was a regulation for the UNESCO to support countries in order to improve their curricula in order to face climate change. And we have developed an initiative, a flagship program named Green and Blue Curricula, because we've added blue as well, the blue word, because in most countries, curriculum of developing countries, for instance, there are some elements on the environment. So we already had the green aspects, or even though they need to be improved, but what was lacking was the question of the blue curriculum that are related to the oceans. There was a study carried out that saying that in the next 30 years, most causes of conflicts will be drinkable water. And this will be a cause of conflict in the world. And what we are saying through the flagships is how can we start from now on to train the youth to be eco-citizens through the green aspects, but also giving them the tools to understand that drinkable water is limited and that we need to take care of it and protect it. So this is why we wanted to insist also on the green and the blue curriculum in order to protect also all the water resources that are become more and more scarce. And it is important for us to take into account also the blue component, and we are working on it with our several countries. Thank you.
Merci, Yao. Roman, in the framework of your program, you deal with certain dimensions of SDG 4.7, including gender and intercultural issues. But you have also very active students because you give them a lot of responsibility. So we think these are good practices to share. Can you tell us more about these good practices in your program, please?
Sure. Let me start with the Accelerated Education Program, and it's the meaning and what is Accelerated Education Program is.
Yes, please.
It's flexible, age-appropriate program. It's run in an accelerated time frame, which aims to provide access to education for disadvantaged, overage, out-of-school children and youth. This may include those who missed out or had their education interrupted due to poverty, marginalization, conflict, and crisis. So in this program, according to the in Ethiopian data, since the UNICEF 2020 National Out-of-School Children results is that there are over 30 million out-of-school children in Ethiopia. So there are also 5 dimensions through this. Over the age from 4 and 6, 7 up to 40, and 15 up to 60. So regarding to the 7 up to 4 age out-of-school children, there are over 2.6 million are female, and there are over 1.9 million are male students, out-of-school children. So regarding to the citizenship education, which is included in our teachers training. It's classroom jobs. We call it a classroom jobs. We give a different classroom roles for the students, like ambassador, classroom monitor, door monitor, plant caretaker, safeguarding leader, slogan leader, teacher assistant. Those are the roles who we give for the students, and it's really creates a great environment for the class and help to teach and to share experience each other, our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Roman. And Tina, please, specifically on teachers, could you share with us interesting examples or practices based on your research in teacher education? It could be in Switzerland, but also in other countries, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Does it work? Yes.
I think so.
For me, one of the most important things is to see teachers as lifelong learners. So you never start a teaching career with being a complete teacher, but you learn throughout your life and in interaction with the students and the other teachers. So I think one of the key aspects to start with good examples or good or best practices is to accept the psychological need of teachers for social relatedness during their career. And this is why one aspect seems specifically important to me, and this is collaborative learning during teaching, teacher education and teaching. And one of my, let's say, current findings related to collaborative learning and cooperation in the teaching profession is that this needs specific guidance. We have the experience that, for example, the student teachers are assigned to a practical site in pairs. But that does not imply that they learn from each other. Often they just share and distribute their work. Of course, they discuss with each other, but it's not real collaboration, and they do not benefit enough as we expect them to do. So this is one aspect I want to share with you, that we have to support teachers in effective learning, and this effective learning is best realized if they have a personal gain and if they are trained how to learn effectively from and with others, specifically when the reality of the school, where the interaction with the students are so intense and so frequent, are a little bit pushing them away from their role as learners and more to the role as the teachers. And that second aspect I want to mention from research experiences is that the value education that is related to SSE 4.7 is that this needs to be like emerged or related to the subjects they are teaching. So if I see these values reflected in, as already mentioned, for example, math education, but all other subjects as well, then I see not an additional burden of teaching values, but it's more like an integrated way of educating students. And this, finally, needs very good teaching material. And I think on this we could share, I think, all over the world, good teaching material that supports teachers in combining the official, let's say, goal of teaching subjects and educating students for specific skills with more general global value education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just before continuing, we start to have many questions, and I've seen one who actually define these common values we should teach. And maybe I would like to hear from Karen and Yao about how we should define these common values. Karen, please.
Can you please repeat the question? How we should define the common values in which terms, in which
we should teach?
I can come in if you want.
Yes, okay. Please, Yao. Please, Yao.
Thank you. This question brings me to something that is very important. You know, for us, we are promoting, you know, today, when a country wants to write a curriculum, what they do, they will gather the experts from the ministry. I'm talking from the perspective of third world, the developing world, of course. They will gather the experts in one hotel or somewhere for 1 week or 2 weeks, and this team of experts will come out with the national curriculum that will be applied at national level. But we are saying that the process of curriculum elaboration should be more participatory. And the question that has been put is saying who should propose this. It means that we have to see in every context who are the persons who carry these values and how this person, their voice can be heard in the curriculum elaboration process. For instance, today, you can have in some countries very knowledgeable people who have some traditional knowledge, very, very intelligent, but traditionally, and they know the cultures of the reality, the local, but when the curriculum is designed, they are not called. So for us, this question, my answer is simply to say, we have to revisit the process of curriculum elaboration and make sure that all those who can contribute to value whatever we want to value in the curriculum at country level, their voice should be heard.
Thank you, Yao. I don't know, Karen, if you want to answer to the question.
Sure. I think it's a core question, and it's a very good question. The thing is that the SDG, in a way, defines the common values that we have on this planet. In international cooperation, in education, it is hard to define common values by a project implementer. And just as Yao now said, it is also hard and probably not the right approach to define common values, even at a national point, for what is supposed to be taught through curricula. If these common values are not something that the environment and the society lives and reflects, a teacher will not be able to teach it to the pupils. You cannot teach values in a classroom that are not lived by the society. And I find this very important in the approach to education for sustainable development all over the world. If we come in through international projects and we define curricula, it doesn't, and we train teachers, it is not going to be enough.
Thank you very much, Karen. So we have seen that SDG 4.7 is highly complex in itself, bearing the risk to overload curricula and overburden teachers and learners, as you said. How can justice be done to the complexity and transversality of the goal as a whole? And Roman, transversality and interdisciplinarity seem to be at the heart of your program. You bring fundamental skills for literacy and numeracy together with other disciplines, subjects, and also using natural, cultural, communal environments as spaces for learning. Could you please share with us this experience?
Sure. The Accelerated Education Program, it should aim that to capture evidences on how they are supporting a more holistic set of learning outcomes beyond like numeracy and literacy with the learners, with a specific attention to the contribution of accelerated education programs to build social, emotional competencies and life skills. So it's one of the teachers' training we should give regarding to the accelerated education program according to the culture. And the first thing we start with, there is 4 pillars, we call it 4H. And the hate, that the cognitive thinking, and the heart, the affection of the love, and the heart, the psychomotors, and the habit to continuous application. So the teacher's training of activity-based learning, which is the learner-centered instruction methods we apply in the in accelerated education program. It's like means that learning by doing, discovering by the students, and there's also learning with the world. So we create in our classroom different ABL methods, like they learn through the nature-based learning, community-based learning, family-based learning, expert visits. And we use their, sometimes they go outside and learn some education, like subjects related to, even we invite the parents, engage parents into the teaching learning process. And also we have 6 corners in our class. There is no 4 corners because we use the 4 walls, the side of the 4 walls and the ceiling and the floor to learn, to teach, to be more interactive classroom. And they learn everything. They just bring everything in the class. They have their own, like a shopping center, a bank, a plant corner, a handcraft corner, a safeguarding corner. They simply tell their feeling in the morning when they come to school. The teacher will ask during the by using the safeguarding corner also. And they just take care, the plant caretaker, as I mentioned before, the classroom jobs, the responsibility of the students. They will bring water and planting the plants in the classroom. So they have everything in the class, and they learn by touching, and they just using different approaches. Also, we just inviting experts to the classrooms, like even from the parents, because their parents are different background, different professionals, like the farmers, trader. So they will come to the classroom and they will teach them. And they share experience. They learn from each other of their parents and the students. So this is how accelerated education program going through all this beauty, and also this is the package of this program.
Great, thank you, Roman. So it really seems we need to rethink, to reframe education. This is the topic of the day. Yao, you say a few words about it already, but we know that you are even interested in decolonizing curricula. What does that mean, decolonizing curricula?
Decolonizing curricula means to propose to work with countries to have a curriculum that enable them to have citizens who are more proud of what they are, who are more rooted in their cultures, and of course, before being open to the global thing. You know, for instance, I used to tease my colleagues, my friends, that when I look at myself, I find. Tiens, let me shift to French, excuse me. Quand je me regarde,
when I look at myself, I think that I am a very skilled person because, and this is thanks to the different cultures I belong to, because I was born in Africa, but I also had the possibility to carry out my studies in the Western world. So right now I have this mix of cultures that is really helping me out in order to better understand, which is the global culture. And this is really necessary also for the new generations. They needed to be open-minded. They needed to be focused also on all the other societies and all the other cultures. They needed to be able to understand them. And this is what we hope for the next generations, to be able to speak several languages, for example, to be able to learn a different language even at a very early age. because we all know that children can learn several languages at the same time. And if they do that at home, they don't have to stop when they are at school. They need to keep on learning a different language even when they are at school, because this is really good also for their future and for their cultural development. And sometimes we just consider a school as a place where we can learn French, for example, where we can learn English, or where we can learn a specific subject, and that's it. But this is not correct. School is a very important space, a very important place where children can learn a lot of new things, can get important values that will be fundamental for their growth, for their development, and for their future life. And nowadays, even nowadays, there are still communities that do not want to encourage their children to go to school, because they just wanted to convey their traditional values, and they don't understand the importance of school for the development, for the growth of those children. This was just to say that it is necessary to decolonize the different curricula in order to update, for example, the subject, for example, the story subject, and in order to understand what happened during our story, our history, and also in order to explain those events, for example, in a more specific and precise way. And this is especially true when we talk about Africa in general and African history. And recently, there was a law that was, or a recommendation that was accepted in France, saying that France needs to update all the different books dedicated to history that will be used also in other French-speaking countries. Thank you very much.
So we'll know it won't be an easy task, and maybe my last question is about the limits of the implementation of SDG 4.7. And Karen, can SDG 4.7 be implemented in context where human rights are not respected? And we know there are many contexts where human rights are not respected. Is that possible?
That's a very general question, but I do believe that 4.7 is broad enough to still offer windows, topical windows that can be taught because they are in the interest not only of the society, but also of those determining the contents of education. Of course, there are limits to teach gender equality and human rights and issues such as those in countries, even citizenship in countries which have different political systems. But there will still be enough windows on education for sustainable development that I think even more autocratic systems can subscribe to and are willing in their own interest to implement. We should never define a context as a lost case. And we should rather be very careful with terms we are using coming from international cooperation in a certain context, coming from abroad and from fairly privileged countries. If we think about what does global citizenship imply, and it will easily be perceived as a colonial concept, the smell of the Western dogma. It's a concept that comes, global citizenship, a concept that comes from countries that have a closed door policy to migrants. And the irony will not escape anybody who has a certain amount of critical thinking. Yeah, so this is about your question, Thibaut.
Thank you very much, Karen. Tina, for you, is that possible to implement SDG 4.7 without overloading schools? You talk about this risk of overloading schools. Is that possible?
Well, maybe it's not possible without some overload, but a total overload. I'm thinking about the idea of connecting the individual learning with a more setting learning or contextual learning. So related specifically to your last question, my vision is of a school or educational system as a huge, huge learning community. So opening school, and that would mean the real improvement and real change in the school system as a place for learning for all generations, for all professions, for all people, not just for students that are allowed to go to school in specific day phases from 8 to, let's say, 4 o'clock, and then the schools are closed. But I think we have to rethink schools, and we have to install the idea of the school as the place for all to learn. And with this in mind, if we would try to empower individual skills and competence in teacher education and teacher in-service training, for example, combined with a more structural development of schools where, for example, schools principals, we know from research, play absolutely a pivotal role. And this together could help to develop, because education is embedded in a multi-layer system, and we have to address all these different layers to have a whole improvement where it's not against the will of the single teacher, it's not against the will of a single school, but it's a common goal and it's a common shared identity of improving towards the values that I think are specifically related to a peaceful, a respectful and a flourishing living together in a very heterogeneous, inclusive and vivid and colorful society.
Thank you very much, Tina. Beatrice, I think we have questions from participants.
Yes, thank you everyone for your lively contributions in terms of questions. We have, and you also voted on the questions. The question that was most interesting for most participants was about decolonizing education. I think we have already touched upon it. Should go deeper. No time right now, but we have more time in the workshops in the afternoon to take up some of the topics that we were lucky enough to have some inputs by our panelists. So another one, the second voted question was about the common values and who should identify them. We've talked about that. So let me take up the next one, which is what can the Western countries learn from the Global South in regards to sustainability education, or in regards to SDG 4.7. I would actually like to ask Roman that. She's representing a program in Ethiopia that manages to bring back out-of-school children to school and to educate 3 years of schooling within 1 year with surprisingly very, very good results. So, and this is a specific approach. So maybe, Roman, you can tell us, what do you think could Western countries or other countries learn from your experience?
So maybe in the accelerated education program, there are so many takeaways for the Western countries can take it. Like the first one is teachers training also change the teachers, because we need to approach first the teachers. You can take the learning, the teaching learning process during the accelerated education program is the main. The secret sauce is activity-based learning. So I think you can take away this from the teachers training, that also the it's have its own like different packages. As we call it a SPID school program training package. So I think the basic thing that is the ABL training. That.
Thank you very much, Roman. And I hand back to Thibaut for the final round.
Great, thank you very much. To come to our conclusions, we would like to ask each panelist to come back to the title of our thematic day. We claim to talk about reframing education. So what are your key recommendations for reframing education to best support teachers and learners to contribute to SDG 4.7? Tina, could you start?
Yeah, thank you, Thibaut. I'd like to repeat the idea of the common or the learning community that has to be implemented into our society. It's still, I think, the roles are a little bit too strongly separated between those that teach and those who learn. And specifically in this interplay of a continuous development, for example, what we can learn from other countries, from other perspectives, needs to be like a key topic during teacher education and during school. So we have some ideas and some models related to collaborative learning, to peer learning, to exploratory learning, for example, where students are encouraged to share their ideas and their perspective with teachers and with other students. And I hope that respecting the learning potential, the learning need, and the learning rights of every person within the educational system can empower the system to reach the sustainable goals that we are heading for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. Karen, what are your key recommendations for reframing education, please?
Thank you. I very much agree with what Professor Hascher just said. I think from our experience at SDC and from an IC lens, so international cooperation lens, there's little if any quick wins in promoting education for sustainable development. It is a long-term investment, and training of teachers is not sufficient, or revising curricula. Reframing will require building common ground on the underlying values, and only then can the priorities be carved out for action and the concept can be mainstreamed in education. Now, this is at system level, whereas what Roman was describing is also a very encouraging example that things can be done differently at project level or program level. I think for me, another one is that we need interdisciplinary approaches, not separate modules on this, but really to see how this can be integrated in the existing curricula, the existing teaching, the existing syllabi. And very important for me, and also from the lessons learned with our projects in this regard, is that teachers and learners can only be agents of change if the system and their environment supports them to be so. And it must be doable for teachers. They mustn't be overcharged, but Tina Hascher already said this. So I think, yeah, I'll keep it at that. A lot more to say.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much, Karen. Yao?
Thank you very much. So there are different levers that are crucial in order to reframe the education. First of all, we have seen what needs to be implemented to ensure to reach the SDG 4.7. So we need new skills, and we know that the teachers are already overloaded, just as the curricula. So this is one of the main challenge in order to reach the SDG 4.7, because curricula are already overloaded. So we need to simplify them, because there are many subjects that are overdated, and that could be that could leave a space to new skills, to new subjects, and also in order to leave more time for students. And because everything is based on memorization, so we need to leave more space, more room for the development of creativity. So we need to leave them more time. So this is what we need to simplify the curriculum in order to enhance and to encourage creativity instead of memorization. So this needs to be implemented. And then we need to use better the ICT in artificial intelligence, for instance, and smartphones. And usually I say to the Minister of Education with whom I am in touch that in most countries in Africa, smartphones are forbidden at school. And I always tell him this is wrong, because today the youth are interested by what's in their smartphone. So we need to teach how to use it at school, and to use it correctly. So we do not need to forbid it, but we need to use it better. So to use better the ICTs in order, and it is crucial. So we need to make sure that they are used in the correct way and not forbidden. It's not the solution. And then we need to take into account the assessment, the evaluation. So we need to change the mindset of how we assess students, because there are many skills today. And when we talk, for instance, of mathematics, we need to change the mindset in order to be eco-citizens. And these are values that are not taken into account in the evaluation. So the SDG 4.7 talks about behaviors in the society, and something that we can learn mostly from the society by living in our society. And the evaluation systems that are in place today do not allow to measure and to assess students when they are out of school. So we need to rethink the evaluation in order to adapt it. Then, as regards teachers, it is important that the transformation of education highlights the alignment of the curriculum and the curriculum of training for teachers. I am sorry, I think he's muted. Okay. So sometimes in the same country there is no separation. So this transformation of education will mean a better work to align the curriculum and the curriculum of training for education and for teachers, so that they have a better curriculum for better teaching.
Merci beaucoup, Yao. And please, Roman, what are your key recommendations for reforming education, please?
My recommendation to reframing education is the first one that I mentioned before. We need to come up with a holistic training, and like the goal for Sustainable Development Goal 4. We need to come up with this holistic training according to, like we mentioned before. So the second recommendation is we need to focus on the school leadership, empowering female school leaders, like empowering girls, support their self-confidence and motivate them to work harder and aspire for a better future. In another word, like they are a role model for the girls. So we need to focus on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank very much the 4 panelists. Thank you for your contribution this morning. Please, Beatrice.
Thank you also from my side, Tina, Karen, Yao, and Roman. It was a pleasure to listen to you, and we're getting ready now for the next session.
Merci beaucoup à toi, Beatrice.
Thank you very much, Thibaut and Beatrice, for this very interesting panel. Thank you very much.
Merci, à bientôt.
À bientôt.